14th episode of Tuesdays with Toby. My name is Toby Frierson, and I am delighted to be back before you again today. Did you all have a happy Easter? Wow, this year looks so different for me than it did last year. I had an opportunity to travel, to be with some family and friends, and I'm just really grateful for where we are at this point in the pandemic, for the progress that's been made, and also for those of you who lost loved ones during this whole time. I just want to take an opportunity and give that some attention, because I haven't mentioned the pandemic a whole lot on this platform, but I know it's been affecting you, and I really hope that these videos actually have been encouraging you. So hope you guys had a good time celebrating and a good time maybe moving around a little bit differently this year. So last week, you heard me struggling a whole lot with the whole idea that there was no need to apologize. So I took my episode to convince you all of why I thought there is a need. And then I asked for your feedback. And of course, I heard from some of you, and I appreciate the things that you've shared. I still want to hold to where I say personally, there's always a need. And here's some of the reasons why I still feel like there's a need for us to be able to apologize. Apologizing, it produces harmony. I did mention that. We talked about that. Also, grace is a really good thing. And if we extend grace, we've got a far better chance of receiving it. I mentioned that we're not perfect, and we need to apologize at times because we're simply just out here making mistakes. Known and sometimes unknown, but there's still that chance that we're making mistakes. And then lastly, I said that apologizing can de-escalate a situation. And I think we've all been in situations where if someone would have just said, I'm sorry, and walked away, that would have stopped it all. So this is just a snapshot of what we discussed last week, but it's also a great segue into this week's topic. This week, we're going to talk about, who are you accountable to? It's our 14th week together, so before we go any further, I want to be sure we go over our family rules. During Tuesdays with Toby, we will use kind words, do your best, always be honest, forgive and forget, be happy, count your blessings, laugh at yourself, stay positive, and love one another. Asking someone the simple question of who they're accountable to can evoke so many different responses. I've heard things like, I'm accountable to me, I'm grown, no one needs to tell me anything, I'll be fine. I've heard that, you have too. I've also heard things like, I'm accountable to my spouse, my best friend, my sibling, or even I have a designated accountability partner, or I'm a part of an accountability group. Those are just a few examples. There are a number of people in our lives, however, that we can choose to let in. We can choose to give them access to the not so great moments of our lives. Granting this access would give them permission to essentially provide feedback and commentary on what they're hearing from us, on what they're seeing out of us, and what they're experiencing when they're around us. Sounds frightening, doesn't it? That's because it is. It is incredibly frightening to ask a close friend or a family member, hey, will you let me know when I get out of line and start acting out of character? Will you let me know when I'm sucking all the air out of the room because I'm talking too much and I'm not giving others an opportunity to speak? That might be a personal issue here. Will you let me know when I'm being ungracious or unforgiving? Will you let me know when I keep making things all about me and I'm being selfish? Will you let me know if I'm being deceitful or dishonest? Now, y'all might be like, Toby, I got to stop you there. Someone doesn't have to tell you when you're being dishonest. You know that. Well, sure, we may know that, but we may not be on to the fact that everyone else around us knows that. And now we've picked up a label and people say things like, yeah, you can't believe a word she says, or he's constantly lying. That part we might not know. That's where the accountability partner comes in and says things like, you know, people think you lie all the time, right? It's hard to hear, I know, but this is what putting an accountability partner in place could help us with. It is very possible for us to walk around in a state of oblivion and a complete unawareness until we give someone access and allow ourselves to be completely vulnerable with them so they can show us our blind spots. As I've been talking for the last few minutes, I hope you are starting to go through your relationships trying to identify who you should be accountable to. Who is the person or people in your life that you can trust with your deepest struggles, your greatest fears, your impure thoughts, and your poor decisions? If you take a harder look at those categories I just named, you should probably not be coming up with 10 people right now. Yes, there are groups, because I mentioned accountability groups, but I'm literally thinking right now, we need a person. And you might say, well, geez, Toby, that sounds like it would be an incredible burden for someone to have to hold someone else accountable. You're right, it is, it's a burden. But it's also one of the most beautiful and delicate relationships you can enter into when you know you can pick up the phone and literally share your heart with someone with no judgment, but also they're not going to co-sign if it's not warranted. That is a beautiful thing. And that's what an accountability relationship or an accountability partner can bring us. See, in the relationship I'm talking about, the same person that sings your praises, that provides support, that encourages you, will also be allowed to ask you challenging questions, to present some not so pleasant observations to you, and to tell you when you've missed a mark, and essentially when you're out of line and when you're wrong, when you're dead wrong. That's the same person that's able to do both of those things to you. And I can't stress it enough. It's important. Finding an accountability partner or establishing a relationship like this is not easy. And for those of you who this sounds like something you need to do, as you go off on this path to find someone, it may not be easy. But when I tell you it's worth it, it is so worth it. I have learned so much about myself through the lens of others. Some of it was great to hear. Others, it was hard to hear and it was hard to process. Some of it was solicited feedback through designated accountability partners over the years, and some of it was unsolicited. But nevertheless, blind spots are real. I cannot restate that enough. Blind spots are real, and it's important to have someone that's willing to provide us not only positive affirmations and amazing things that they see in us and experience with us, but also they can pull us to the side and tug on our arm or tug on anything to get our attention and then make a statement that maybe is not so favorable. And then for us to be mature enough, to be willing enough, to be wanting to have the best version of ourselves forward enough, willing to make those necessary changes in order to be the best version of ourselves. So let's use this week to give this some serious thought, to ask ourselves the question, who am I accountable to? Who are we accountable to? I hope you all like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you back next time.